In this episode, Golden and I discuss DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Season 5. Full speed ahead. Welcome to the Omega Beam number 82. I'm your host, Oren Merton, and I hope you're well. This is the last in our series of season wrap-ups of the CW superhero shows. This time we talk about one of our favorites, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, which just completed its 5th season. If you haven't caught it yet, we have a few spoilers, but don't worry, not enough to ruin it for you or anything. So let's jump in. I am here with Golden to talk about DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Unlike the other DC superhero shows, this one wasn't abridged. They had filmed all the episodes before they had to shut down. So this is a true and complete season. What'd you think?
Well, I thought it was a lot of fun. I was kind of late to Legends of Tomorrow and joining in until I met you. And then you're like, oh, no, they're really a lot of fun. And I was like, okay, I'll give it another chance. Found out they were a lot of fun, and I probably would have to say, of all of the DC shows on the CW, then this is probably one of my favorites.
I would agree. I would say this is my favorite. It certainly is the most comic booky in the sense that just weird and wacky sort of Silver Age almost stories that break the fourth wall or have all kinds of weird characters. It still has melodrama and character growth and all the rest, but it's played for laughs a lot. And it hits. They're not jokes that fall flat, but they succeed.
Yeah, they still have serious storylines, and the serious storylines are just decorated with all of this lovely lace that is filled with humor and color and all of these other entertaining things.
Absolutely. And they do it with a sort of self-understanding. Very often within stories, they'll talk about themselves, the legends, as they tend to screw things up better. In other words, the things are bad and they screw them up, but somehow when they're done, things are where they're supposed to be. So they kind of make that part of their modus operandi, that they sort of stumble into success.
And a lot of their just titles of the episodes.
Right.
Ahead of Her Time with Marie Antoinette, Mortal Kombat, Mr. Parker's Cul-de-sac.
Uh-huh.
There's just a lot of...
I Am Legends, making fun of Legends of Tomorrow, and I Am Legend, the movie.
Romeo versus Juliet, Dawn of Justness.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of fun.
They do.
The Great British Fake Off.
Right.
So. And
they have puppets, and they have, TV shows in the TV show, and
Freaks and Greeks.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely play up the humor angle. And
Swan Thong.
And you have to give the cast a lot of credit because they're both capable of action stunts, of this, superhero action, but at the same time, they also have to have pretty damn good comedic timing. So it's not heavy drama in the sense that, Arrow was, but I think it requires in some ways maybe even more timing than some of the more dramatic beats of some of the more intense shows. So I think they did that very well. There were a couple things that I didn't like, and not because they were bad, just because they made me a little bit sad. And I don't want to give too much away. It's now streaming on Netflix, so go ahead and watch it if you haven't. It's there, and you'll love it. But two of my favorite characters in the show left mid-season. And it was in story. It wasn't because the actors decided they'd had enough of the show. It was the writers decided this is the direction they wanted to go. And it's too bad because I love those characters. One of whom was one of the original legends from the very first season, who was one of the characters introduced on Arrow way back when.
But you're not going to say what character?
Should I?
Yes.
Okay, it's the Atom. It's Ray Palmer, the Atom. And the character he leaves with is the one, if you've been watching, that a romance has been brewing. So it certainly made sense in story that they would opt for something different. But
this series is going to miss Brandon Routh and Courtney Ford.
I read the writers saying that they just, first of all, they always like to mix it up, but second of all, they feel like it's a ship of misfits, and when people resolve their stories, basically, when they're not sort of the lone
misfits anymore,
then it's time they can, still be friends of the show and things like that, and they certainly left it open for coming back and cameos or whatever else. I mean, there's a real love relationship between the characters and between the cast and production team. But they just decided that it was best for them to be off the ship and put some other people on the ship maybe later. And
there's definitely some cast changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, it's tough because a lot of shows I've lost interest in when they've started playing with the core dynamic. One of the reasons I lost interest in Arrow was when the core team started being thinned out and going in different directions and stuff. And I never really came back to it. I watched like the last season because it was the last season. But I never really, it never meant as much to me as it did in those early days when it was that core team. So it's tough, but somehow with Legends over these 5 seasons, they have played with the core team. They did from season 1 on. And yet I've always liked what they've done. So I'm not, going to poo-poo the show or say, oh, it'll never be as good again or whatever. It very well may. I'm excited about next season.
You still have a very interesting cast of characters.
You do.
Even if they're not on every single time, they're through.
Right.
They come back. They meet up.
Absolutely. And I think a special hats off has to be given to the captain, Katie Lotz, who I think has really done an incredible job of sort of rising in the ranks, if you will, from just in season 1, one of the ensemble who wasn't necessarily more than anyone else, to the Sarah Lance being the captain of the entire ship and doing it well and being a good leader. And so I think that speaks well for the character, for the writing of the character. I think that speaks well for the actress as well. I will say, and we talked about this in person when we were watching them, for a number of episodes, there's like a few episode arc where she gets a superpower. Normally her thing is mostly training and combat skills. But she does get a superhero power after she fights with a mystic being, and it comes with a cost. And so she's supposed to play a character with both a superpower and a handicap for a few episodes. I did not think that as an actress she necessarily sold the handicap.
No, you have a great cast of characters, and like you said, they're all misfits, and
Right.
they all have their quirks and their mysteries. And I think if you go back and you look at like season 1, and you look at Rory, Dominic Purcell's character,
He's the one I was thinking of
and
too.
it's like, okay, well, where can you really go with this?
Yeah.
And they've gone so many directions with this character that began as a villain that you didn't think was very... It was kind of flat, maybe, to begin with.
Right.
And now it's like blossomed into this rare flower that is so entertaining, and you just... Like, where else can they go with him?
Exactly. And I think that speaks well for the writing that they're willing to take chances, take the character who looks like a big bruiser and make him a romance novelist and make him,
Deadbeat dad.
a deadbeat dad and do all these things with him. And I think it also speaks well for the actor that he's able to pull it all off.
Yeah.
And that I think that speaks really well for the show, and I think that speaks well for the future of the show, that they've got a dynamic enough and talented enough cast and talented enough writing team that they can take chances and do what they want. And what they've done almost every single season is the very end of the season finale introduces the big bad of the following season. So they did that in this one as well. They set up the initial conflict and who the big bad is going to be. And every year it has been different. It's never been the same story. It's always been something unique. And so once again, they picked something that is really wide open and lends itself to, it could be anything. It could be crazy and wacky. It could be deeply serious. It could lead in a million different directions. And that's kind of exciting. It's kind of exciting to not know where it's going to go, but to trust the writers and the actors to get you there. So I'm excited about the next season. I'm more excited about the next season of Legends of Tomorrow than I am about the next seasons, I think, of any other CW show.
Okay. Didn't you say when Rory threw the bus driver out, that's a Wilhelm scream?
Yes.
Yes, that's actually in the trivia on IMDb.
Yeah. They for those of you listening who aren't familiar, in early Hollywood history, a director needed a scream. And so I think the sound guy named Wilhelm or whatever, I believe that's, I could be wrong on that. If I'm wrong, hey, leave a comment on Facebook. But I believe it was the sound designer who captured just like this type of scream. And it just became like part of the Hollywood sound effect library. And it's used in almost every movie. And so it was such a fun little throwback to put it in this TV show. It was like, oh, great, but they do that a lot. Like I said, it's like, I guess you could call it an Easter egg, but it's just part of the fun. It's part of the fun to know that they are having fun. It makes it more fun to know that they're having fun. They want you to have fun.
I'm having fun with the trivia on IMDb right now. I'm just like looking through some of that.
All right.
The one where they're at the college.
Mm-hmm.
It's PSI, PHI fraternity. Sci-fi fraternity.
Sci-fi fraternity.
If you say it out loud.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff like this. And I think if you are watching Legends of Tomorrow, you will really, really like this season. This will be another season that you'll be like absolutely thrilled with what they give you. If you haven't been watching Legends of Tomorrow, this is probably not one you need to start from season 1 and watch all of them. You could pick it up in like season 2 or 3 and just watch the last few. And I guarantee you, it's entertainment. This isn't like, if you're one of these people who you need it to be serious, you're not going to get it out of this. But if you just want to have just fun, this is it.
So the trivia in Freaks and Geeks is pretty entertaining.
Okay.
There's a Dracula poster.
Yeah.
In the frat house. Dominic Purcell played the character in Blade Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's kind of. So I'm surprised you didn't know this. Hudson University is a location used in DC Comics.
Oh, I
notably as the college attended by Dick Grayson.
I did not know that. I learned something too.
Yeah, there's some interesting thing,
digging into DC lore.
This one was
nice.
Yeah, so some of the, it's just overall, and it just goes to show that not only do they make it serious, interesting, and fun, but if you are a serious DC fan and like really just into things, there are things that will show up that you can still geek out on.
I absolutely agree. I remember when this show first came out, a lot of the sort of trepidation was, really? They're doing a show with like DC, like B and C listers? How can that be any good? And of course, it's incredibly good because the writers, in a sense, get carte blanche to do what they want with them. And they have, and they've really made a good show out of it. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's also one of the shows that I think Supergirl is probably, of the CW superhero shows, I think it's safe to say that Supergirl is maybe the message show, that it's the one where the theme of the arc tends to be one of social justice and things like that every time. Whereas Legends of Tomorrow, it's more just for fun. But at the same time, this is like the first show that had a Muslim superhero. It has gay characters. It's very, very progressive, not in an in-your-face way, just as this is who we are. And I think that is a very, very good, especially now when, obviously social justice is front and center. I think it's a really good message to just put out there that, no, really, we are all the same. We are all equal. And let's just enjoy ourselves and have fun and laugh together.
And you still have also characters that in previous seasons were entertaining. Damien Dark.
Right.
Making an appearance this season.
Damien Dark is another villain that had a wonderful arc. He started in Arrow as a very serious character. I mean, he had a sense of humor in Arrow. His personality was always light. But what he was doing was horrible, and he just took pleasure in being horrible. However, then when he joined Legends of Tomorrow, he remained just as villainous, but it was much more lighthearted. And he didn't quite turn into a hero, but the good parts of his character definitely shined through the nasty parts. And that actor is, of course, absolutely wonderful as well, is able to pull it off. So, yeah.
Apparently the dinner scene having to do with Damien Dark was apparently extremely entertaining and hard for them to keep their faces straight.
I can imagine.
Because it was just because the gentleman that plays Damien Dark was ad-libbing or doing some things that just had them in stitches or unable to keep straight faces. It is just a fun and colorful show.
Yeah.
And I cannot say that enough. You have all of these just remarkable characters that could almost have shows of their own. Mm-hmm. You have Charlie, who's a shapeshifter, who really just wants to be free.
Yeah.
Of everything that is surrounding her. And the Loom of Fate and her sisters. Mm-hmm. You have a new Zari. New version of Zari.
Right, Zari 2.0.
And do you really want... Which Zari do you really like better? Just because this Zari is different, and she may not know as much, is she really... Does that mean that she's not worth as much to them? Mm-hmm. I think Ava has kind of fallen back in terms of the spotlight a little bit. But it was fun to kind of see her try to be captain.
Yeah.
Courtney Ford got to do something else besides just being Nora Dark.
Yeah, very true.
Which was a lot of fun. You have the Astra character.
Right.
Who goes through a lot of growth in trying to figure out what she really wants, and if she gets it, will it really give her what she thinks that... Will it satisfy what she thinks she needs?
I think it was also nice that Astra, in fact, the thread began in Constantine's own series. And I thought it was cool that they brought it back.
And Nate, You know,
Good old Steel.
He's got his, like, issues that he's trying to work out, thinks that they're worked out, and then the rug's pulled from underneath him.
Right.
And Rory is just always entertaining as soon as he walks in. Constantine. And it was nice to also see Mona back a little bit. And Gary back a little bit. Behrad. We didn't really know Behrad before.
Right. He was just a name.
So now we get to see what Zari's been fighting for.
Yeah, they did a great job. They did a great job. And I'm looking forward to see how they can do that again. It'll be interesting also to see how the reality of the world affects it. You know, I know that they're theoretically supposed to start filming in the fall, but, you know, who knows if that's going to happen or what the various restrictions are going to be on filming due to the pandemic and everything else. So we'll have to see how that affects it. Well, thank you, Golden.
You are welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/82. If you liked this episode, please leave a review in the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's those reviews that help people who like this stuff find our podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.